Hey guys, welcome to the Paint with Lovejoy website. This is the place for first-time and beginners to get comfortable with the painting process. If you have never painted, I am definitely the teacher for you. I will give you permission to play, to create with your hands, and I do consider this adult kindergarten, where you get to make memories with yourself or with loved ones. And you will notice that creative time is something that you will reference for the rest of your life. I do encourage you to send me photos of your paintings. And when you're done with my YouTube videos, please check out my Paint Your Pet course for even more in-depth and kind of my signature class. It's a lot of fun. Before we get started, I want to say thank you for being you. And I also want to give you permission to play today. I'm going to encourage that you take a lot of progress photos, and I do recommend that you turn off your distractions. Put your phone on mute. Please know that mistakes will happen. We call them happy accidents. And I'm going to encourage you to breathe throughout the painting process. Here are your recommended supplies and the colors for this particular video. This video also has a traceable, a line drawing at the beginning, and you can either purchase the traceable and transfer, or you could pause the video and draw it freehand, whichever you feel comfortable doing. Again, progress photos are important. And I'm going to encourage that you pause and play the video as much as you need and rewatch anything that you want. Now let's go ahead and get started painting. All right, guys, take your first progress photo after you've transferred your traceable. And we're going to throw and start in the background, throwing a bunch of paint on there. So I'm using white and teal, but you are more than welcome to switch out and make this any color background that you like, and also any shade. With this particular background for today, I'm actually going to recommend that you kind of do what I'm doing on the plate. You know, maybe grab a little of each color and pull it towards the center and just play with that. You don't have to get the exact same shade every time. And I do recommend that you apply your paint a little bit thicker than you may be comfortable with, so that way you can compensate with the texture of the canvas. And when you apply it a little bit thicker, when we do some blending and throw other colors in there, it makes it a lot easier. Now, if you happen to overlap the traceable line, again, totally okay. Just the fact that you showed up in your painting today, you are already successful. I also recommend, especially with this painting, paint a little messy. You have so many other areas in your life that you have to be perfect and controlled, so this is not a place that you need to do that. And if you take a quick notice, you notice that I slapped some white on the background and just moved the brush around it and played with it. I want you to do the same thing. And remember to breathe. A lot of times when we're doing something for the first time, we're a little nervous, we hold our breath. So laugh at yourself a little bit, take a deep breath, shake out your hands. And here, you're just here to have fun. So as I was mixing my color, I added a little bit more teal on this round. But still, I want you to just kind of pull from each color and play with kind of that mixture. This does not have to be perfect, and we are intentionally going for variations in the background here. Now, as you're getting closer to the flower and the bulbs and the stem and everything, if you want to move down to the pointy brush for a little more control, please feel free to switch brushes. Most of the things in my videos and my classes literally are mere recommendations. You can adjust and adapt for what you need, what you're comfortable with, and the tools that you have at your disposal. So nothing is set in stone in the art world. Variety and adaptation and personal style go a long way in this world. All right, so again, just kind of going back, I'm grabbing a little bit of white, grabbing a little bit of teal, playing with those colors, still applying it kind of thick. I also want you to kind of focus on the pressure of your brush. Light pressure creates smoother brush strokes. More pressure creates more movement and what I call painterly brush strokes. Play with both and find what you enjoy. Because that's really what it comes down to. What do you like? What do you enjoy creating? All right, it's taking shape nice. I know a lot of people like teal. It is one of my favorite colors, and this just makes for a really fun background. And like I recommended that you can switch colors for the background. If you want to do a different color for your flower, again, please feel free to switch out and paint the color you like. Now here you can see where I'm going over some areas from prior coverage on the background, just playing with it, playing with the movement of my brush. Grab that direct teal, you can slap it on there for some darker areas. If you want a place that's lighter, throw some white on there. And again, your background is wet. The new paint that you're introducing is wet. This is called wet on wet blending. And I do want you to do everything that you want to your background now while the paint is wet. Then we'll let the paint dry before we move into the flower. So again, slap that teal, that white on there. If you want to introduce some other colors, purples and blues and even reds, and even yellows look really good mixed with teal. Lots of options. So get your background to where you like, take your progress photo. We're going to take a bit of a break. Give yourself about 10 or 15 minutes for your background to dry. Notice how you feel. Look at your painting from across the room. Maybe get something to eat if you want. I'm going to talk about my Paint Your Pet class for a minute, and then we will pick up the painting after this. So my Paint Your Pet class is a lot of fun. I will teach you the realistic style or pop art or both. I won't make you paint as fast as that video, but that was a nice demonstration. So the Paint Your Pet course, this is my favorite part. Look at those proud pets and look at what a great job my students did getting the likeness of their pet. And most of my students are first time and beginner painters. So it's awesome when you paint something that you love. You actually put more energy into it. And again, if you've never painted, I'm a perfect teacher to start with. I do offer in-person and online workshops, trying to have something for everybody. And what both classes, online and in person, I have very easy and logical steps to follow. You can paint your pet or favorite animal, no humans, only animals, and you will impress yourself and your pet with what you paint. So check out the Paint Your Pet course, check out the discount code, and let's jump back into your painting. Again, I want you to look at it from across the room. Just kind of take a notice of how it looks different from across the room compared to when you step up 2 feet away to start painting. All right, so we're going to move into the flower and it's going to be white and magenta and purple. So we're going to start with the white and the red, and I'm going to use a medium flat brush. You could use a little bit bigger brush, and we're going to go petal by petal and recreate our process. So starting with the white, adding a little bit of red to it to go for kind of a light to kind of medium pink. And I want to tone it down just a touch. So I did throw a little bit of purple in there, but it is still more on the pink side rather than a periwinkle or purple. But again, full permission to change the color as needed. So we're going to lay this as kind of our base color, and then we'll be doing a little bit darker, a little bit lighter, and then putting those little dots for this particular orchid on top of the wet paint. All right, and here we're going to go a little bit lighter, so I'm going to add a little more white to it. There you go, and you can see where I just mixed it directly on the original blob on the plate, and then pulling that lighter color into the bottom of that petal. Now, as we go through the video, please feel free to pause it as often as you need. Go back and rewatch anything that you want. And if you need to see different, closer details, when the video is paused, take a screenshot and you can zoom in a little bit closer to see something. So here you can see where I grabbed the direct white and I'm placing it on the bottom and kind of the left and right hand side of the bottom of that petal. So again, going a little bit dark, a little bit lighter down there. Now I'm grabbing the pointy brush, mixing red and purple to go a little bit darker. You can add a touch of water if you need to, but you never want it dripping wet. And these are going to be for those little dots. So these are literally blobs that I'm applying on top of this. And if you've seen some of those orchids with what it looks like little ink spots on their petals, that's what I was referencing for this one. So again, it's the red and purple. Make the color to your liking. Maybe it's more red, maybe it's more purple. And while this is wet, I'm literally just making dots or kind of really smushing my brush into that base color. Play with this. This does not have an exact formula, and this is something that you can trust your instincts with and just go, maybe a little bit more here, maybe a little bit more here. So go with that. Take your progress photo. We're going to move into the next petal and recreate that exact same process. So we're going back to that first pink that you made. We're going to apply it to the petal on the base. Then we'll add a little bit lighter, and then we'll put our little blobs of the darker color on top of it. Now again, full permission to paint a little bit messy, a little bit sloppier. We are covering the traceable lines with these layers. And again, if you want to switch out colors, go for it. And one of the things as we do this multiple times with this repetitive practice, it just gets you more and more comfortable with the process and your tools. So here, grabbing that white, going on the bottom and the left and right hand side of this petal. And again, mixing into that base color that we applied first. And this is called wet on wet blending. Now I'm grabbing that pointy brush, my red and purple mixture, and again, dots and blobs and blobs and blobs. I have noticed with my beginner painters, when you paint a blob, it's actually a lot of fun. And it's amazing when you put a couple blobs next to each other, the shape that it creates, and the illusion of what you make on your canvas. Now you will notice that because this is going wet on wet, as you apply your blob, maybe it changes colors because it's mixing with the pink underneath. Maybe it's not dark enough. You can always go back and reapply. And even like I'm doing here, where I'm realizing I need a little more balance on the other petal, go back and apply the color there. So that way there's a slight symmetry. Don't get obsessed about the symmetry. All right, you're doing good. Take that progress photo. We're going to move to that top petal. Recreate that same process. Again, trying to keep this simple, approachable, and logical for you. All right. Doing good. Again, take your time. This is not a race. It is okay if you do this over a couple of sessions. The one thing that I do ask is just don't stop a painting in the middle and never come back to it. Please complete your paintings. Even if you throw them away, complete that painting because it's good for your psyche to know that you started and finished something. And if you don't like it, paint it again so that way you like it the second time. All right, so again, we've laid our base pink on there. Now we're going in with our red-purple mixture for these blobs. If you do have an orchid at your house and you want to reference that, you can switch out colors and reference your orchid at home or your colors of choice. Again, these are little dots, little blobs. It is mixing with the underneath color, kind of creating a new shade. Play with this, have fun. And again, remember to get out of your chair, look at it from about 10 feet away, assess, go, you know what, maybe I need a few more dots here. Maybe I need something here. Painting is a communication with you and the canvas. All right, so going back to our base mixture, getting those last couple petals in there. And if you can hear my cat, Diego is cheering you on with his little meows. Hopefully those showed up in the audio. So because these petals are so tiny, I'm actually going to do both of them at the same time. So putting that base light pink on there, then we'll go in with our other shadow. And again, this is kind of a sloppy painting. Doesn't have to be perfect, but when we look at it, we all know it's an orchid. So now back to that red purple. I'm actually using that medium flat brush. If you want to switch back to your pointy brush, you can. These are not as prominent as petals, so literally I'm just kind of get some shades on there. You can see here where it's mixing and changing the color with the underneath color, but this is taking shape nicely. You guys are doing great. All right, take your progress photo. We're going to move into those last couple of areas and then the top buds on the stem. So again, going back a little bit lighter, so adding more white, so taking my original light pink, adding white to it, so that way we have a little bit more contrast on this particular petal than we do the two on the left and the right of it. And I am using the pointy brush on this, filling in that whole space, and then we'll do the wet on wet on top of this for some shading. And if you want, go ahead. These are some kind of weird shapes up in the orchid. I do not know enough about plants as to why the orchid makes this particular shape, but it is very cool looking. So take your pink and you can fill in those little side little knobbies from the center. And then we're going to go in with our red and purple and add our darker shades on there. And again, this is one that it is hard to see because my hand's in the way. So wait until my hand is out of the way, pause the video, and then observe where I place this color. Again, you can take that screenshot, zoom in a little bit more to see more details. But again, you are strengthening your power of observation. All right, still using the pointy brush. I'm going to go back to my red and white, making my light pink again. And getting the top of that little knobby thing on the plant, on the orchid. Orchids are some of my favorite flowers. I can actually grow these pretty well. So I find all their shapes very fascinating. All right, so grabbing some of that direct white, there we go, slapping that on there, and then we're gonna put a few little highlights, filling in that bottom space. Again, this does not have to be exact. We are not doing photorealism here. If you were doing photorealism, research the grid method, and that is how you can do photorealism. It is approachable, it is doable, but it's not going to be done in a short session. So here you can see where I'm grabbing that white, putting some extra highlights on the flower, being rather generous with the amount of white, so that way we have some nice opaque white on there, and to kind of compensate for the darker color underneath. So again, pause that video, just notice where I place that color, and then mimic that on your canvas. So grabbing a little bit of yellow, warming up kind of the center, still using the pointy brush. These are little dot and dash marks that I'm making. And like I said, again, it just kind of warms up the center, and this is the colors that attract the insects to come and help pollinate the flowers. All right, we got a good looking orchid taking shape right now. We're going to grab the direct purple, still using the pointy brush, and just intensifying a few shadows. This is optional. You don't have to do this if you do not want to. I like a lot of color, so that's why I throw some extra colors in there. When you are done, take your progress photo. We're going to make a light purple, and that's going to be white with a little bit of purple. And we're going to move right along and continue finishing this painting. All right, so sometimes I'll go for the light color and then realize it's not light enough. So I grab some direct white, slapped it on that part that I just used, and then moved my brush so that way I was literally mixing the color directly on canvas. So again, that was my purple was a little darker than I wanted. And so I took the direct white to change the color. Now I'm using the direct purple and just again, little dots, giving an illusion of some lines before this bud actually opens. And again, this is something that as you look at it from a distance, you're like, oh, yeah, that looks like a 3D object. But up close, you may not see that as much. So still using that purple for that top bud. And because these are buds that haven't opened yet, now I'm doing a purple and green mixture and then adding some white to lighten it up. And when we add the green to the color, it makes it a little more earthy. It kind of ties it into the stem and just gives us a slightly earthy muted colors. And here I realized I needed more green, so added a little more. And then we'll move into the stem to get that on there. If yours is more green or more purple than mine, okay. We're still going to look at this and go, yep, that's an orchid. All right, so now using some green and yellow, We're going to get that bottom part of the stem that I painted over when we were doing the background. There we go. And you do want it to kind of line up a little bit with the stem that's coming out at the top of the flower, or you can even reference that traceable again. I'm going to fill in those last little areas. Again, does not have to be perfect. We will be outlining this flower with black paint just to kind of clean up some of those edges. So go back to that purple and green, putting a few little highlights or shadows on there and taking shape nicely. Take your progress photo, and here this next step is optional. This is just something that I do on a lot of my videos because I teach first-time and beginners. So if you do not want to do this outline, you don't have to. If you want to do it in a different color, you can. But by doing this outline, this helps kind of clean up some of the edges, makes a little bit more pop, and it's kind of a satisfying thing for my beginner painters as they are building their skills and confidence. Eventually, you'll get to the point where you don't need to do the outlines. That's why I give that option. As you're doing the outlines, I want you to exhale as you touch the brush to the canvas. I want you to take your time. This is not a race. And I want you to kind of play with the consistency of your line. So try to keep the pressure of your brush even. More pressure creates a wider line. Light pressure creates a skinnier line. It's okay if you have both widths of line in your painting, but the goal eventually would be to keep a consistent width of line. So good practice. Also, as you're applying your paint, I recommend holding the brush almost perpendicular to the canvas at a 90-degree angle to the canvas and use just the last 2 millimeters of the brush. And when you use just the last 2 millimeters of the brush, it makes it a little bit easier to keep a skinnier line and keep a little consistency. Again, take your time. And also, if you need to rotate the canvas because it's a little bit easier to make a certain shape, please rotate the canvas. I keep it in the same orientation just because I'm filming video. But I will turn my canvases sideways and upside down just because it's easier to make an arc line from a particular direction. If you need to, you can add a touch of water to your brush and your black paint. You don't want to add too much, basically no more than 30% water added to your paint. Kind of general rule of thumb is you never want the water dripping off your paintbrush. But play with different viscosities of paint. Sometimes runnier, thinner paint is easier for lines, and thicker, more opaque paint is better for coverage. So there is a use and a place for everything in the art world. All right, so this is looking good. This is already cleaning up the edges nicely, and it's helping define the individual petals. So that is why I like doing outlines like this, especially for my beginner painters. If you're finding that you're getting tired and sloppy and frustrated, take a break. Walk away from the painting, maybe get something to eat. Come back to the painting when you're a little more calm or a little more refreshed. Please make sure if you do that, don't just leave the painting and never finish it. Please come back and finish your painting. It's good for your psyche to start and finish projects. So don't leave your painting half done. All right, so getting those last little bits in there, outlining the buds and the stem. And I apologize, it looks like I was hitting the table a little bit as I filmed this without realizing it. And also, this one's not as bad, but I forgot to lock the autofocus lock on this series. So I am only human, so I made a mistake. But I still utilized and made the best of it because it was not worth refilming 12 paintings. So laugh at me a little bit. Keep in mind that we're all going to make mistakes. I've been making videos for a long time, and I still forget stuff. So I say that especially for my beginners and first-time painters out there, you're going to make mistakes. Embrace your mistakes. There's nothing wrong with mistakes. Mistakes mean you tried. Mistakes mean you're going to learn from it. And mistakes should not hold the deep connotation of mistakes. They're merely opportunities and creative ways to find new solutions. All right, so that takes us to the conclusion of today's painting. Excellent job today. Really, really proud of you. So thanks for taking time out of your day to paint and get creative with me. Don't wait too long to do your next one. Please send me photos or tag me on social media of your work. Check out the Paint Your Pet course when you're ready. And again, thanks for painting. Until next time, cheers.